Episode 13, Unification Party, broadcasting from the Unification Party headquarters. Co-host Adrian Blizzard.
Hi, everyone.
Here we are. Buddy, take it away. What is happening? Canadian politics, 7 days away, 1 week from the federal election. Where are we at?
Well, last we spoke to our audience, it was the day before the debates, or 2 days before. So the debates happened. Then there was a lot of advanced early polling stuff on the weekend. But as far as like a recap on the debates, Jay, the first one was the French debate. Kind of to your point of meh, the debates were meh was, I think, your take on it. The French one was pretty meh. I mean, I think there's a case to be made that maybe Carney looked maybe better than anticipated regarding his French. Like nobody really going into it. That was kind of the talk of the town. That like he's the weakest.
I heard that all Carney needed to do at the French debate was just not screw up. That's all he needed to do, and he seems to have done that.
Well, there was two things that kind of happened at the end of the debate. Like the last question was regarding Carney was insinuating that because there's all this talk about Pierre using the notwithstanding clause and using it to incarcerate violent criminals longer than their whatever, right? And that's a big deal. But Carney basically insinuated that watch out, slippery slope. He does it for that. He's definitely probably going to do it for abortion. Like what? And he's going to take your right to abortion away, which is like a textbook liberal like trump card that they play every election, like abortion and guns. Come on, rah rah, right? So, and I think Pierre handled his rebuttal well to it. But the big story from the French debate seemed to kind of like play through a little bit was kind of more or less the media and their role in it. So like, I don't know if you do recall, like years ago, I believe Rebel News and True North Media had to sue elections, the Debates Canada or whoever it is to get in the ask questions like to Trudeau and everybody. Like that was like 4 or 5 years ago. They had to sue to get the right. So the big thing that happened is like of the 17 questions asked to the guys after, 4 of them were from Rebel News, and that kind of seemed to rub the mainstream media, the CBCs, the wrong way. And they actually applied pressure to the debates commissioner. And I mean, I was going to show you the clip, but really me just making that statement is kind of more or less kind of like basically.
I did see the headlines indicating that the headlines I saw was the established media was disappointed that the fringe right lunatics were given such, equal access. So that was the take. That was the take that seemed to be floating down through the headlines.
Well, I have the clip here, and I want to show it to you because this is day one, and then like there is the next day there is more stuff that kind of plays out. So basically, I'm just going to quickly summarize it. Basically, what I liked about it is the debates commissioner was like pressed by the CBC journalist to like basically like just kind of pushed him in all sorts of, actually it's horrible to describe. The only real way to do it is show you. So I'm going to show you this clip. It's 2 minutes. And this video will say more than my words can.
News got as many questions as I think CBC, Radio Canada, Press Canadian, and CTV or Global combined last night. There were almost 50% of the questions, and some of them ventured into territory that really are not issues in this election campaign, were not issues in that debate. And I'm not saying reporters should be restricted in terms of what they ask, but if the debate commission is going to organize these things, it didn't seem to have control on it last night, sir.
Well, we were learning from what happened last night, and you'll see hopefully a fair representation tonight.
But didn't the same thing happen in 2021? Like I remember vividly at the museum in Gatineau that the same sort of thing happened with people stacking the microphones and the questions is going in a totally different direction.
Well, there's only so much we can do to control free speech,
I understand that.
You got to understand that.
But lifeguards got to look after the pool, right? And the debate commission was set up for this, and people are now calling for it to be completely scrapped because of what we saw last night. I just wonder if you think there's a loss of public trust in the function of this organization.
I think the public will judge us on the debates themselves.
Which I will say was very good last night. It was very well done. The actual 2-hour event was.
I think we'll be judged on that. That's the main criteria for us, to present debates that actually reach a lot of people.
That's all you really need to see. But you can kind of get like they're pushing him hard. That was after the French debate. That wasn't even after the English debate. And then the English debate happened, which I'm going to go into as well, because obviously that happened the following day. But at the end of it, like, there was just scuffles between the different reporting outlets behind the scenes. Did you see anything of the?
I saw that Rosemary Barton of the CBC cowering in the corner with a 1984 style police line behind them.
After the English one.
Yeah, after the English one, I saw that.
Because, so essentially, like, you could see how the media was, like, that was him in front of people reacting. Behind the scenes, they were, like, mean girls in high school. And, like, I have a clip here I will share of it, but more or less, like, they canceled the questions for the English debate. And they blamed it on, like, security not being, and you see that, like, he comes out, the guy we just saw there, Mr. Cormier, and says what he says, and he's just kind of like, you could see it's almost, there's two schools of thought. Like, some people say that, like, Carney didn't do that good in the debate, so his team didn't want any more questions. Okay, whatever. You can think whatever you want to think. But then there's the case that, like, the mainstream media was putting pressure on him because they couldn't legally prohibit Rebel News and True North and Juno and the other outlets from asking questions that they didn't like. Like, there's even, like, clips from the CBC reacting like, I had to look back and check the flag to see if we were still in Canada. I don't know why they're asking questions about gender. And it's like, get off, lady. Like, what are we, like, but it was in unison. Like, if you haven't seen any of it, like, I'm going to.
Yeah, it's what I saw was what I thought was, I saw the worst clickbait head titles that they could throw at, or like headlines and titles that they could throw at Carney. Like, this is the moment that Carney lost the election. And I saw nothing that I thought was anything of note. Like, you really had to scrape. Like, oh, we brought in, a South Korean body language expert, and he could tell by Carney's, left shoulder twitch that they're not very confident. I don't know. I didn't see anything. Did you see something that was like, whoa? I didn't.
At the English debate.
At any debate.
Yeah, I did. The whoa was, and the French one was the one I pointed out about the trying to equate the using the notwithstanding clause for one thing automatically means to use it for another. That was okay, nice try. Okay, you are still pushing that. That was of significance. And the last question at the English debate, which was about the security clearance. Like, Carney looked cute, trying to be like, he's got it, I got it. Like, what's this guy up to? And then I think the way Pierre handled that, I actually have that clip here. Did you see that, Pierre's reaction?
Yeah, I did see that. That's a good, show that clip, because his response to that was pretty good.
Yeah, and he handled it, because I know from the people I talk to that some of the Liberal supporters in their life bring that clip up quite a bit as, like, not that clip, bring up the fact that Pierre won't get a security clearance as some kind of, like, checkmate that he's not fit.
Yeah.
The context of that. Everyone on the stage, Mr. Blanchet, Mr. Singh, myself, we have our top secret security clearance. We have our top secret security clearance. I got mine within 3 weeks. It wasn't hard, but I felt it was important that I had it so I could be in a position to be informed about that dangerous world and take decisions then. And Mr. Polyev, it is now 950 days, if my numbers are right, since you've had the opportunity to get your top secret security clearance, and you've refused. Why?
Well, first of all, I have got my security clearance when I was a minister. I got top secret clearance at the time, so there's no problem getting that. But when the government made this recent offer, they said that if I got the security clearance briefings, that I would be gay under the security law, and I could be prosecuted if I spoke freely about matters of foreign interference. Now, given that Canada has experienced Chinese interference by Beijing, the government of China, in 2 consecutive elections, I needed to do my job to speak freely without fear of prosecution. And that was not something I would be allowed to do. Even Thomas Mulcair, the former leader of the NDP, said that when he was the leader of the opposition, he never would have accepted the kind of gag order that your government and Mr. Trudeau's government was attempting to impose on me. And it's good that I made that decision, because it has allowed me to speak freely about things like the case where one of your candidates, sir, actually said that he wanted to send a political opponent to China under a bounty threatening his life or imprisonment. And you refused to get rid of him. Now, it might have something to do with the fact that you went to China not long ago to get a $250 million loan for your company. But the reality is, you refused to stand up for a Canadian who was being threatened by a foreign government. And I was able to speak freely on that matter because I refused the gag order that the Liberal government attempted to impose on me.
Well, there's a couple of interesting things. I think people at home have seen a robust debate here, and it's been a robust campaign, and it has not stopped Mr. Blanchet or Mr. Singh at times during his campaign by making challenges with respect to these issues. So one can address it. I will observe, as someone with a top secret security clearance, that China is not the only country that is accused of foreign interference. And
gentlemen, that is time for the segment. That's our.
So, and that, if you see Carney's reaction there, the other points that I saw in the debate was basically Carney always deflected. Like, he never answered a question straight up. There was,
But do you think that matters to anybody?
well, if the
Like,
other leaders
I watched
are,
that.
if the other leaders are giving actual answers, like there was one time when Yves Francois Blanchette asks Carney to disclose his finances and says, like, Mr. Singh has done it, I have done it, Mr. Pierre has done it, and he just said he just talked around it and filibustered. So I think at some point, like, I agree with you. Like, again, we're talking about like who's going to change your mind. We're talking about like 6% of the voting population of Canada was undecided before like 2 weeks ago, right? So like everyone else has made up their mind, but the 6% that are undecided, they might be swayed by like people giving more substance and somebody not, you know what I mean, one way or the other. So I think it's not going to hurt. But again, like most people probably aren't watching the debates as intently as a political nerd like myself is.
Well, the only real, like, I saw that clip with Pierre there before, and I thought he handled that well. And I even saw some of the pundits saying that it was kind of not a very smart question for Carney to have asked him because he had an easy layup answer for it. But what I saw from a few of the clips here, there, and everywhere, I thought, I wish I could say it exactly the way Carney did, but I'm sure you saw it where Carney said, like, oh, you've been fighting the carbon tax and Justin Trudeau for a decade, but both of those are gone. And again, I don't give it the same gravitas that Carney did, but it was the combination of what he said and the way he said it. I did think it was effective. It was definitely effective as a soundbite because it even got to me. I was like, whoa, Carney, that is a pretty good blow. Like if you're the change candidate and you're distancing yourself from the past, and he did kind of make for a split second, Pierre seemed to pause, and maybe I just imagined Pierre was recovering, but I don't know if that's the case. But it seemed like a pretty good quip. That was about the only thing. But again, nothing that would like, oh well, you won me over. Like people don't listen to the words anyways. They already hate or like or dislike, or like I'm purposely like with all that I can do for the purpose of this show is to try to be as like blank slate, tabula rasa as I can. Like so I could even recognize that Carney got that pretty slick jab in. Like I want to hate the guy more than anybody, right? Just the idea that he's going to be some.
Balanced.
Well, it's impossible, but I do my best, and I
Nice
still only see what I want to see. So, and a lot of it is not even what the words are. It's like even you show me that clip of like Pierre, who's answering excellently to Carney's accusation, but it's still boring, and it's still like.
Politics
numbers
that you forgot that.
Yeah. So people feel what they feel. And so I'm trying to feel what I feel when I see that back and forth. I don't know. Like I said, I don't, other than a few little, again, only because it's our job to find something. There was, from both of the debates, there's like business as usual. Like, they might as well not have happened. I don't see them being any significant effect one way or the other.
Well, I
could be wrong. I'm no nanos.
Well, I mean, if you're looking at the polls, it does look like it did lean a little more Pierre after. Like his likability is going up and Carney's is going down. So, I mean.
Yeah, but was that the debates, or was that because, Pierre almost at the same time, or maybe a few days before, has done a lot more long form podcasts, had some like heart to heart. He changed his direction, has been more
Sure.
like,
Sure.
I'm not so angry and scary. So, was that the effect of that, or was that directly 2 days later because the debate? That seems unlikely. I mean, the whole shift of his personality from cranky, doomy, gloomy opposition to being more, I have a daughter with disabilities and look, I ain't so scary.
Well, here's what I would say.
That seems more likely.
Apparently, according to the polls, like if you look at sympathy support, like intent to vote for the Conservatives nationally, Conservatives in Canada, of those Conservatives polled, 80%, I think, are like, they're the ones that are voting for sure. And of the Liberals polled, they're very soft. They're at 63% of a for sure going to vote. So I think if you're that soft vote in the middle person, I'm not saying you're going to jump on Pierre after the debate, but you might jump back to Jagmeet. Right? Like there obviously butterfly effect. Like for everything, there will be something. And it is Canadian politics. So it is very dry and boring. But like what wasn't dry and boring was what happened after. Like there was like a reporter from the Hill Times in the media room was talking to Keean Betsky from the Counter Signal. He used to be a reporter at Rebel. And they were kind of getting into like a heated, it got heated. And basically other people were recording it. And it kind of like went on for like 5 minutes. And then it went on a little bit further with other reporters kind of like at being aggressive with the Rebel media, like, and Ezra and his team for like them getting 4 questions in last night. And like, whatever. And then the debate, then the questions were canceled after this whole.
I think are you describing something that happened, or are you describing that scene from Anchorman 2?
Right? It was just wild. That's what I mean. Like, I will, I'm going to show you just a little bit. I got it right here. Okay. So it was by considering how boring the debates were, this, was not very boring by.
To you because you threatened to sue. You're lying again. I'm not. Because you're lying. Don't you have a third-party advertising truck you don't take care of?
To clarify, I'll give you a little, like, obviously this is in the middle of something. This goes on for like, from start of the conversation, because Keean is filming. Keean's sitting right behind the guy. And now this is like 5 minutes into it. And he's now yelling at Ezra for recording. So it's a long clip. So that's why I would just be honest. We're in the middle of it here.
How much did you spend on third-party advertising this election? Between Rebel News and Ford Canada, companies you own both of, how much money have you spent to influence this election? I'm assuming in favor of conservatives. How much have you spent? Like, you're a journalist, you must be honest.
So this essentially goes on, and he's more or less just giving them all shit for being, have to crowdfund because they're independent. So like that would seem to be like the main theme of like the state-funded media or even the state-subsidized guys like CTV and whatnot, and the other guys being like, you guys are third-party advertisers, and it's just like that was like their gotcha.
Does this get any more violent than this? Is this pretty much the extent of the interchange?
That's the extent
of the exchange.
That's the extent.
So pretty nothing.
Like, and then exactly, but then like this happens later.
Doesn't work for us.
This guy's coming up with conspiracy. This guy's mad at Ezra. And again, if you don't know, Keean Betsky, the guy who was talking to the reporter initially, used to work for Ezra. They're both independent journalists. Ezra owns Rebel News, and they're friends, obviously, still. Now, Keean went off and did his own thing called the Counter Signal.
It started. You created a security incident. You created a security incident before this debate started. That guy from the Hill Times. When you got into a screaming match with people before this debate started, and that's the justification that has been used to cancel the Q&A. So the circus that you created before this debate.
Where did you get this information?
I'm not making anything up.
Where did you get these facts?
We were all there in the front of this room right before this debate. You caused an incident that caused the security concern that got this Q&A shut down. So Ezra Levant, I blame you 100% for the Q&A being canceled.
13 rebels here. Kian Bexley doesn't work for
I have a
us.
question for you, Adrian.
Yeah, we're done with that clip. But again, like it was.
I have a question for you.
Shoot.
I have a question for you. Do you now do you now understand why I find the Canadian portion of our news portion of the show so boring? Because I think this is as exciting as it gets. As exciting as it gets. As this is the big news. Like Trump is getting shot in the ear.
Right.
You know, you've got like it's pandemonium.
Coming to the White House. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Diddy's the second coming.
Or dignitaries, everyday Japan prime ministers there. Signing new car deals, trade
$1 trillion deals. And here we are. We've got Ezra Levant and that comic book guy fighting about something.
Worst debate ever. Yeah,
exactly.
So that scrum that I kind of just showed you like a quick glimpse of it, and before the comic book guy one, that was what he was referring to. Was like that security incident. And if like it's just basically Kian wrote an article about it. Exactly. It's so boring. I agree, man. But that was like, again, it was still, aside from the security clearance clip, more interesting than anything that happened at the debate. Aside from like everybody kind of just saw what they wanted to see. If you like the guy, you probably like the guy more, whichever guy your guy is. I will say too, though, to my point of like the butterfly effect, I do think like in both debates, I was most impressed overall, surprisingly, by Yves-François Brachet, and I think it might have been because I maybe had no expectation. I didn't know much of the man at all, and I would say, like, if you're a Bloc supporter in Quebec, you were probably, I'd assume you'd be happy with him. He seemed to do pretty decent, and I was surprised by that. Just on a side note, like to keep the boring conversation going.
I didn't know. I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming.
You're right.
Like,
you're
I'm thankful. I'm thankful that we live in the country that we live in, that we seem to trudge and on forward, and we can threaten like Quebec's leaving and Alberta's threatening to leave and everyone's shaking their fists, but ultimately,
we all want to
just going to go to the polls and, it'll be more of the same and that's that. So,
well,
anyway,
did you see the Carney supporters on the weekend flipping the bird? That was kind of like
I know, but how many hours of footage do they have to go to? How many lines do they have to go? How much do they have to instigate before you get a handful of people to act like morons? Not very long. So what is that show us? That there's a handful of weirdos in Barrie?
And Napian and this guy here.
This guy. Yeah, he's become a meme.
Yeah.
Everybody loves him.
He has become a meme. And it actually is it was one I wanted to share with you here, but I can't find it. Like I have a graph of like our GDP and like how our country is not doing very well compared to our peers. And these are two facts based on this exact thing that you're talking about that I read in an article today, and I was like, I've got to remember these two facts. The Alberta comes in 12th. Our biggest GDP producing province would be 12th in the United States for GDP production. But in general, your average American produces $80,000 in whatever, and then and Canadian is like 50,000 something, and Mexico's like 15,000. So we're kicking Mexico's ours, but we are far below. I thought I shared the graph. Did you not see I had it.
Yeah, it was there, but I didn't know what I was supposed to be what I was looking at.
Well, the fact is, like, that chart of, like, the GDP growth, first off, it looks like Ireland, Portugal, and Lithuania have all done something wacky because they're at, like, 41% GDP growth in the last, like, 20 years, and Canada was at, like, 1 at the very bottom. But that graph I've seen before, but it was like you said, the old man meme was on it. That just was what I thought was funny.
We're falling apart, like, here from a GDP perspective. I mean, we're just bringing in low wage, low skill student workers.
Pressing wage growth and raising rents, raising costs. Yeah. The last thing I wanted to mention to you that I thought was interesting, the Privy Council report about 2040 Canada. Have you, my friend, heard or anything about this? It just came on my radar today.
So there was the 2030 agenda. This is the 2040. So this is the update of what we should be afraid of next. Lay it on me.
It's a dystopian aristocracy with like class-based dating apps and like more or less like you won't really be able to like leave where you were born and like I saw the first time I've ever seen this term, generational mortgage.
Yeah, they do that someplace.
Well,
they do that in like Hong Kong and places like that.
Mm-hmm. But that's wild. And they're talking about like people are probably going to start like illegally hunting and fishing and like maybe stop paying their taxes and they're going to lose hope in
by 2040. Who is the privy? What is the privy council? Who is this privy council people?
It was it's the Horizon Services Canada, which is a part of the Privy Council. So
this is good stuff. We found some good stuff here, buddy.
Well, they're talking about how essentially their social mobility won't really happen. You're kind of like, and the dating apps will be set up so like rich will be swiping rich. Gated communities are going to be big, not for the poor, but for the haves. And they even mentioned like, I'm just kind of giving you the bullet points. Like I got the 40-page document here, but I can't do two things at once. But I did see Rebel News summarize it, Sheila Gunn Reid there, and she's pretty good at what she does. And it was like, like exactly like I'm saying, like they're talking about.
Can you hear me? You keep freezing up. Just pause for a second, because you've been freezing up, and so just give it a second to see if you're okay, and then go back a sentence or two when you're ready.
About the Rebel News?
I don't know. I'm saying I haven't heard you for the last few seconds.
Oh, I was talking about the like the summary of it. Like it's exactly like I just kind of laid out. Like it sounds like a crazy sci-fi novel. Like there'll be people will realize.
Is there a universal basic income that they ties you so you behave, or what happens?
That I didn't get too much into that. Like I said, I just kind of briefly glanced at it before we went on here. I saw Sheila Gunn Reid's report from the Rebel News there, and it talks about. And I did go search it. Like I have the 40-page document from Horizon. Canada.
So are these documents indicating that this is what they're projecting will happen, or is this what they want to make happen?
I think it's that combined with, I don't know if it's that so much as that's what we're on pace for.
Okay, well, that's a different scenario. The government's looking into the future and saying this is basically where we're headed. It's different than it being a plan. This is what we're going to make the people do. So they're basically have a doom and gloom outlook to 2040, not looking good, is what they're saying.
Yes, but I believe the Privy Council is like, I want to say attached to the Prime Minister's office. Like it kind of shapes policy, and I don't think the report I don't think they're writing the report as like a warning, so much as like you guys don't read this stuff anyways. Like this is what's happening more or less.
That seems unlikely. It would seem more likely that I'm going to look into this. Our next show we're going to do a deep dive next show into Agenda 2040 for sure. But let's not speak too much on it now. I'm very excited about that because we're just going to be guessing. But my guess is they're looking at present trends and they're indicating that, hey, no one's going to have a job. And then
AI will replace us. Yes.
The wealthy will isolate themselves. I've heard lots of futurists predicting similar type things, maybe not on such a short term as 2040, but I can see that happening already, like the hints of that.
Oh, well, I'll be honest with you. Like I live out in the country and like have a little bit of livestock / pets in a small garden and stuff like that. So I'm reading it and I was kind of like, this is already kind of happening. Like this is why some of the reasons like I moved out here, because I was trying to just get away from whether it's the economic chaos of the cities or the social chaos or the cultural chaos.
Absolutely. It's the same reason that I moved out here is going to the corners of the where it ain't happening is where it'll happen the slowest and the last. But I mean, there's no way we can have. I mean, we have population collapse, we have debt, we have like crazy.
It's inevitable. Like
ideological, we've come to a hammerhead fight between more or less half of the population and how the world should be.
And even on a macro level, that half of the population splintered into 8 little halves in and of itself that all, if need be, hate each other for a different reason.
We're fractured. And then we're adding to that, huge population of, other outsiders.
But it did touch on that. Like those people might leave if they don't see any, like the new people. It does like briefly say, I don't know the exact wording, but it's like newcomers who feel that the opportunity they expected is not available might leave to
that's
other
already
areas.
Happening.
Right.
And that's already happening.
Channels of immigrants who feel like they were sold a false bill of goods with Canada, which you never heard. They were.
That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I find it funny, we're talking about affordability, talking about the election, apparently still Trump's not an issue. It's affordability. I mean, even though Trump overshadows everything, but the main issues are affordability and, I can't remember something else, but housing. Yes, the big housing issue. And I just thought you had mentioned, both of these people, whether it's Pierre or Carney, they both have these big plans to build, I think Pierre's was 2.5 million homes in 5 years. And
yeah, I saw that.
And Carney's going to make even if he's making $10 a unit, good for him if it solves the problem. If his company's just firing him out some factory somewhere and Carney gets a 10% kickback, great. If that's actually going to solve the affordability thing. But I know from being a amateur builder, amateur developer, professional real estate broker at one time, I know that the cost of building a structure to live in is gone beyond what anyone can afford. So there's no affordable anything when you're stuck with bureaucratic red tape and green initiatives that require, this level of insulation, this thing of that, it's just not possible. And the incomes aren't there for it. There's no way around it. I don't care how many homes he builds. So then let's say, okay, so that's problem one, right? Problem one is just the beginning. So nobody can afford the affordable homes. 2, nobody can build the affordable homes. Reading an article the other day, they were talking about 40% of Canada's critical infrastructure is, everyone's retiring. There's nobody replacing them. The young people are all too weak and lazy, apparently, to do these jobs. And I guarantee you, over in India, Mr. and Mrs. Khan don't sell the family gold to send their kid over to North America to go to plumber's college, which is a lower caste profession back from India, to be a hands-on trade worker from is that what they're going to send their kid to do? Absolutely not. I'm not saying there's no immigrants who've gone into the trades, but in general, they're coming over here for white collar or administrative jobs or those types of jobs. No one's sacrificing everything back home in the village to send, little Manpreet to be the general laborer at the carpenters union gig at the old factory wherever in
on that note, I actually do work with 2 young Indian men that I know for sure are in school for construction. But the one that I've talked to a little bit more about it, I know his end game is business. He wants, yes, he's going to do construction, but it's going to be business, some sort of
we'll see.
Well, that's the goal, right? That's his dream. And I mean, I like him. I think he might just do that. But you to your point,
obviously people are doing that.
Yeah, no, but his plan is not to swing a hammer for 40 years, is what I'm telling you. Which,
no.
I mean, you can't blame the guy. Nobody wants to do that if they can prevent it.
No, but I mean, so I just don't see how immigration is going to solve. I mean, even you said nobody wants to swing a hammer for 40 years, but that's what the job entails, right? and lots of guys. But no, but I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying we've been programmed to think these jobs stink, and we're from here, and we know. Like my son made over 100 grand last year, more or less swinging a hammer, and it's not so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's built like a brick shit house.
well, that's a bonus of it as well.
Yeah,
But
freebie.
my point being, there's lots of money in the trades here, but people have
Yes.
been pushed away from that. So I just don't know. You know, they're going to build their Arctic bases. They're going to build a interplanetary space gate. They're going to build 2.3 million homes. Like their platforms are comical. And until government faces this, like 10,000 other problems, like no amount of like.
Well, did you see Kearney's
of course they're going to leave. Yeah, of course.
Kearney's spending's going up. Like I was thinking, like exactly like to your point, like there was some of the stuff you hear recently, and it almost sounded like one of them was going to talk about, like a lot of the government policy. It almost seems like they're expecting the Star Trek ionizer thing, where you just like say computer, steak and eggs. Like they think that thing's right around the corner.
Right around the corner.
A few minutes away from the computer making steak and eggs on command, or like taking me to Hollywood in 1920 in a second, and it's whatever, right? Like, and I mean, I don't know. At some level, that might be there with the virtual reality. You see the other dystopian way of thinking, like you'll be in your pod and you'll be happy to put the
no. The thing is, it's not one or the other. The dystopia and the utopia is the future. They're both. There's going to be both. There'll be enclaves of elites living in these utopias, and then there'll be enclaves of like, you know, I mean, not that I'm not basing this on
deer hunters.
Yeah, sci-fi. I'm not basing this on sci-fi movies, but in almost every sci-fi movie, there's always the people who live in the sewers or the people who live outside the wall.
South Africa, right? Like the gated communities all over the place just because of crime everywhere. So that's kind of like from a perspective of like if you want to see what a society falling apart looks like, right? And you even talk, if you hear any South Africans talk about it, like a lot of us are waiting for this beaches on Normandy moment, where it's like, it's immediate, it's happening, where it's like, no. Societies just trickle. They trickle down for a while. Like every day is just better than the last.
Yeah. Well, and then there's also a saying that goes slowly, then all at once, right? So.
Yes.
But I don't.
But yeah, that's the reality there's no way the government, any of their plans are going to solve. It just seems like more money, like money me is always the solution. And that seems like you're saying, even if Carney could do it at say 10% profit and flip them out, I mean, that's even questionable, let alone like the ethics of that. And
I don't even care about that. I'm just saying he can't do it. It doesn't matter. Like it's not happening. It's just not happening. No one's building. And like you said, people are not going to stay here, and they're not even going to come in the first place. Like Africa's a young population. Africa's booming. If they have to modernize that whole continent, why would someone from this place that's booming, modernizing, familiar, family around, pack up and leave, fly to Canada to look after a bunch of old people and pay, 60% of their income into tax to be part of whatever was this remaining, whatever the figment of the greatness of the West used to be.
Exactly.
They're not going to be
poor. I'd rather be poor at home, like rather than be poor out in the road. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, of course. And then why are even our own young people, why are they going to submit to that? Like they're going to bail. It's already happening. Like the number of people bailing.
The report says like everybody's just going to like kind of lose hope a little bit. And like, and at one point that was kind of interesting was like, a lot of people won't have the mental capacity to help and volunteer locally, which are just kind of like, what? How everyone's going to be stupid? Like what? Or just maybe mentally going to be depressed or full of anxiety?
Well, I read it. I saw this report once, and I will give you the gist of the truth of it. And then I won't worry about these statistics I'm making up, which are directionally and roughly true. But apparently we have in-group and then you have out-group. So the classic Canadian old stock, however, we want to call the classic Western European Canadian. And this is for all cultures and everywhere, apparently. It's a part of what makes us human. We have a really good capacity to absorb and integrate outsiders, and it makes actually our cultures grow, and we learn new things. And
Yeah.
but there becomes a point, and we'll call that the sort of a saturation point. And then once the outside or other surpasses that amount, some amount, then what ends up happening is the trust and social cohesion, it breaks down across. And I no longer, not only don't trust my neighbor like I used to, I also don't even trust my like old stock white Canadian neighbor anymore. It's just trust disappears across the board because you could be in collaboration with this and that. And I'm talking all reptile brain stuff, not like if you ask people directly, but they show that volunteering like falls off a cliff, like community sports, like fundraising, like all the things that made a community in the past just completely begin to disappear. And I think once you go past that, I don't know how you revive that.
That I think I've heard that report too, because it talks about like when like immigrants first come over and they integrate, and then like after a certain number of them in the community, they kind of don't integrate anymore, and they just hang out together and cluster. But yeah, like that kind of reminds me of stories you hear from the Soviet Union of people having to like lie to their spouses and their kids just because they were afraid of them ratting them out to the government. Like, you know, trust is just gone. I can't imagine what that's like, but clearly it's happened in the past, and that just sounds like a living hell where you just can't even be yourself. Like, can you imagine that? Like, you know, you've heard some of the accounts out of like,
well, I mean, even without even going to that extreme, it's the little things like for instance, I live in the country and I live on a road where there's 8 or 9 of us, and 1 or 2 of the guys really go out of their way to keep that road well maintained. They do that partially because obviously it benefits them, but it's also part of what it is to live in a small community. Like some people do this, some people do that. But when that completely disappears, like I said, I'm not disagreeing with you that, yeah, it would suck if your daughter turned you into the police, but I'm not even getting to that. I'm talking about, you know, Little League starts to disappear, the park cleanup that they used to do. Like I went on a hike the other day and with my son and his dog, and we came upon a ball field that at one time was like, this would have been really nice, right? And then there was a trail down by the ocean, and there was, I mean, I can't even believe it's still standing there, but there was like 3 or 4 things that had built in the past. Like one was a bench that you could look at a waterfall, the other was a lookout that was sort of over the ocean. They were all completely rotted out and falling into, you know, into nature there, like unsafe to traverse in any way. And I was just looking at, I knew that, I mean, well, I don't know.
That's the sign of decay.
Absolutely. There was a community there where fathers would have all got together on Saturday and kept the ball, but that's all disappeared. And part of that is the aging population. It's not necessarily the trust, but it's the, you know, the aging population. But that becomes what happens there because of just lack of children will start happening where there's even children because of a lack of interest to get involved, to care, to be.
Or into baseball, right? The community, it's not a cohesive society that just like, you know, is kind of, we like hockey and baseball. There might be like, no, there's the cricket club now, and then there's a soccer club, and nobody really plays baseball.
These things would say, that it's not won't be a replacement to cricket. There'll be just disappearance of all of those things on a meaning and big way. So it's not a transition. It's a loss. That's was what that thing was pointing towards. So you have a very bleak, like it's all very bleak, and I don't know how. I mean, it's not bleak because
what you make it.
We're men and we can do what we want to do, and we've never been so free, and it's never been so easy to shed the shackles of the modern world and do your own thing. So in that regard, who cares? Hopefully, you know, it's not roving bands of marauders, but I mean, I guess I'll deal with that when the time comes. Hopefully.
Yeah, you'll be leading the rove.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting. I want to show you something here, okay? this is
Yeah.
funny because the main issue is affordability, which there is no solution. So that's a recap of affordability. So
Well, it's
we'll
fall in
leave
love
it
with
at
tap
that.
water. Fall in love with tap water and walking.
Yeah. I thought of this analogy today. It's like, picture Canada is a big boat and we're in the ocean, right? And all of us Canadians are on board. And in the bottom of the boat, there's a huge hole, right? And it's a monstrous hole and water is just flowing into the boat. And all of us Canadians are voting on who the captain gets to be. Like, we're all rushing to the polls with our elbows up. And I'm like, I want Mark Carney to drive the boat with the hole in it. And there's a bunch of other people saying, like, no, 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 no. We'll be much better off if Pierre drives the boat with the hole in it. And no one's even talking about the hole, really. I mean, they are, I suppose, like, oh, we're going to do this. But I think society is so oblivious to this demographic and financial collapse that seems to be inevitable. I mean, I know Trump's taking a stab at it, trying to do something new. I mean, I'm not saying he's right or it's going to work, but
He's trying.
he's
No, you're
trying
right.
something drastic and radical. So, I mean, let's just say he's putting some, what is that? Flex tape on the screen door to make a screen door flex tape boat. Like, I mean, maybe not the best boat, but he's taking a
Certainly the
stab at
best
it.
commercial ever.
I'm going to show you this because I thought it was funny. Canadians.
I hope it's the Flex
Apparently,
Seal.
it's no, that'd be great. But I thought this cartoon I thought was pretty funny because how misguided this is. Check this out. Did you see that?
Yeah, I've seen that. I see it, and Canada will never be the 51st state. We're gonna be we're the China's 24th province.
Yeah. And I thought that was kind of a funny representation of, what we were doing here in Canada. How do I stop filming that?
I think you are, no? Or your black screen's up, maybe. We're good
There we
now.
are back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
and then
I did see that cartoon, and I did like it because it's very true.
yeah, like we're gonna run from one villain to another, or a better villain, or a worse villain. I don't know, but
Well,
that seems to be what we're doing.
I used to say as a teenager, as America's war machine was ravaging the Middle East, I heard that supposedly after America bombed a place, they flew over and dropped food packages. And I just kind of, like, the way I kind of thought, maybe that wasn't true, but I mean, maybe it was. At one point, they did it once, maybe, whatever. But, like, when you look at the strongest countries in the world, and even, like, if you're doing a top 10 list, you can include a wide girth. Like, America's not a bad guy, was my kind of take as a teenager. It was like, out of all the bad guys, whoever runs the world's kind of the bad guy. And like, out of all the bad guys to have in the world, maybe I'm saying that because I'm benefiting it with my Canadian privilege, sitting right above them with their protection and whatnot. But I don't know. I think there could be worse. Like, the way the Chinese government seems to treat their own people, I can't imagine how they would treat foreign nationals.
I imagine the truth of China is you're fine 99% of the time, but when you're not, you're not.
It's real.
And I would also bet you probably same thing in Canada. You're fine 99% of the time until the 1% of the time it's just you're not.
You are right. Look at like what they did to Merrill Lynch and Pat King there. They're still going to court. They're still going to court. But I mean,
Silk Road dude, Snowden.
But they're both also out. Trump didn't. No, Snowden I think is still in Moscow.
Okay, then no problem then.
Ross Ulbricht got released. No, you're right. Yeah, 20 years in jail, whatever. No big deal. Guy's whole life gone. No,
yeah, no biggie.
But I would say there's a difference between all four of those instances, because all four of the people we just referenced are alive, versus like, van, black bag over the head into a van off to some black site that isn't even on Google, right? There's
that sounds bad. Yeah.
Like, I just mean, like, I would still take our 1%, as much as I might not be happy that we do that. I'll take judicial raking over the coals over black site. My family never sees me again. They don't know what happened to me because I said something rude on the internet. Like, there was a funny story in China. Like, there was a little boy who like had a Chairman Mao doll, and he was on like one of the Chinese social media apps, and he's like, "Oh, Chairman Mao slap," and he like slaps a Chairman Mao doll, and like they had to like that kid had to do like a public apology, like the police came and they couldn't arrest him because he was a child, but like you just like know his family got like they're not moving up, like they probably aren't in that city anymore, like
For 6 generations, you will something
yeah.
something.
So I mean, you're right. Pick your poison. They're all nobody's perfect. But
yeah, we don't know what we don't know, right? I mean, China seems to be getting some shiznit done. Here's a funny tidbit that juxtaposes what our elbow up Canadians say. According to CRA something I saw, there has never in the history of Canada ever has Canadians spent so much money, pure volume of dollars spent on American stocks. So we won't buy the curd from Wisconsin because of we are so patriotic, because we are such pillars of unhypocritical patriotism that we would
there's a 30% haircut on Nvidia.
Whoa. We would never do that as Canadians. We just wouldn't. So I'm pretty proud of that. We would never do that, something so against our principles.
Well, not everybody that is. I'm sure a lot of the Bay Street crowd likes the Liberals, but again, they're known to be virtue signalers anyways. Yeah, they'll buy Canadian strawberries because people see the label in the lineup and spend the extra $3. But when Nvidia's got a 30% haircut and Tesla's down 20%, whoa, we're leaving money on the table. There is a lot of good deals in the stock market in the last 2 weeks, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know, man.
But no, that
here we are.
And people are who they are. At the end of the day, like people are going to virtue signal, and yeah, elbows up. No more American strawberries or wine or whiskey. Booyah at the hockey game.
I did find it interesting that we've heard so little from Trump and the 51st. Like it's kind of let some steam out of it. But I did like how when they asked his press secretary there, middle of last week or towards the end of last week, they asked him, that we haven't heard any of that 51st state rhetoric,
and then it was fresh. I think I mentioned that in the last show.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, whoa. We're just really busy and we don't have time.
That was the story. That was the story. I started out our show with that. I said, I just looked at Global.
No, I remember. Yeah, I know. It's funny, but it just
off like it's fresh.
As that rolled out and a few days after, that's been quite comical that he's like, let's just say that he made a mistake by doing that. Let's just say, well, let me finish. I'm hypothesizing. He made a mistake by doing that. So he lets it go down, like, the heat diminish, right? So if he had made a mistake saying that, he would just stop. So it's literally, like you said, that he's so busy with other things, he doesn't have time, but he's still happy to just let you know. He's like the bully brother. He's still gonna flick you in the back of the ear and still say like, I'm busy with Tina for the teen dance this weekend, but flick, there you go, 51st state.
Swirly on Monday, yeah.
So he definitely is. He's definitely loving it.
We're in the same category as Rosie O'Donnell to him. Like if it comes up, he's gonna shit on it, but like he's not bringing it up like on his own.
So what do you take from the silence other than that? Like other than that, I mean, not even Trump? Really him. It was just from his press secretary, but his silence. Update your opinion. Yes, the silence on the issue of Canada 51st state.
Well, from Trump's perspective, I stand by. I still think he's got a lot of stuff on his plate. Like and I think he's got more than he had when he first started talking about it. It's all fun and games, throwing around stuff like that when everything's abstract, and then it seems like the rest of the world is kind of like not happy. Like, and they're doing stuff with like the bond market and the treasury market. So I think he's got, he's got bigger fish to fry. As far as I think for us, I think she said, he hasn't changed his mind on it. So I'm still like hoping he pushes it. But I also don't think that I don't know, like, how would you think it would happen? Like I brought up to you the other day my thoughts on earlier today, my thoughts on we need to start a movement for Trump, like letting in like asylum seekers from Canada for like a certain whatever your reason is, whether it's unvaccinated or politically oppressed for online speech or something. And I think like that would maybe be the start of it. Like if 1% of Canadians took Trump up on that and moved, and that would be like a certain type of
I mean,
Canadian.
that would be I mean, I would say like if I was in Trump's inner cabinet and he was saying, I want to slowly, do that. And, that would probably be the first move would just be to like, if you can demonstrate to a really streamlined board here of whatever people, and we have a fast track for Canadian citizens to move to the States and become American citizens, especially in critical like healthcare, this, that, another, and put a huge push on. That would be, I think that alone might be enough to devastate the country.
Well, for us,
Just
it would
that.
devastate, and it would give him. Think about it. Like they have, like housing values are going down there too. Rents are going down there too. So there, it would kind of give the economy a little kick, a little boom. You know what I mean? There'd be more people looking because it's not like most Canadians would move to like rural Iowa. Like I think that there was the 1%. As much as they would be freedom inclined, they'd probably still move to like bigger cities like Austin or maybe Nashville. You know what I mean? So it would be a win for him, and it like exactly like you're saying, it would be a good like introductory foot in the water, like trying it out, and then you'd have like 100,000 whatever plus or 300,000
Superstars.
ambassadors. Like we'd all just maybe it wouldn't work out well for all of us, but like I mean,
Well, they wouldn't let me in. They're not going to let you in.
they're gonna let me in
Why
if they
would
do
they?
it my way.
Well, yeah, what? They would bring us your broken, your huddled mass. So you're going to take your huddled mass across the border.
In my dream situation, it's a situation that I am somehow affected by and I'm allowed in. But yeah, no, obviously, like there would be a way to do it. Like, but I mean, like as far as like, yeah, bring the brain drain, but that brain drain's already been going on. It's just been a little bit harder for people to jump through the hoops.
There's a big difference. Okay, you know this for yourself, right? Okay, you were a successful car sales dude at one time. If all of a sudden you knew tomorrow, hey, come to Houston, you can start working right away because you're in a field we need, and you know what? We have this like department of making Canadians come to the United States fast, whatever, and they're doing the paperwork and helping you. How many people would do that? Like so many people would do that. Like it'd be insane.
Cars in Houston tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what so I mean the only reason it stops you is and so many people is I gotta get a green card and I gotta find a job here and it's a process.
You wouldn't even need to like give us free housing or welfare. Just be like remove the $250,000 for the legal paperwork or whatever. It sounds like it's like at least 56 grand and a few years of paperwork from like the couple people I've heard talk about it. I don't know. I'm throwing out numbers here, but it's certainly not cheap. And
it's not cheap and it's not easy and it takes time. And I even hate getting like trying to change something on my Rogers phone bill. So let alone having to fill out pages and pages of documents and getting them wrong and getting them right and getting physicals and references and police checks and blah, 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 blah. So, but I'm saying that would be the first move. And I mean, if Carney wins, you might have Alberta and Saskatchewan finding a way. I mean, that's where it will start. It will start with them.
We all moved to Saskatoon a month before the switch.
I don't know. I don't know how that would be the hard part, how they would do that.
Where's the line? Where's the line in the sand? Because there would almost be like a whoosh. There would be like 500 people from each province like booking it to Regina that night. Like, we got to get to Regina by this night and like sign this phone bill so that we can have a plan with the letter.
Nothing works like that. It would be business as usual for 10 years with this happens, then that happens. And yeah, nothing happens. Like
I agree with you bureaucratically, but Trump is a little different. If anybody is a little different, he's the guy. So maybe and I think that's why you started this party is because if there ever was a chance, like he made that comment, like this is that window, and we're in a position where we have only to gain for the common people of Canada. Yes, the upper classes might have their feathers ruffled, and the bureaucrats might lose a job or 10%, or you know what I mean? Maybe, who knows?
But we're impossible. I mean, we're hamstrung by, I mean, there's a chance, like, like Trump says, drill, baby, drill, dig, baby, dig, scrape, baby, cut, whatever he's saying. He's willing to go balls to the wall on resource development. And I mean, that's not going to happen here. And like you brought up the excellent point not that long ago, like we've burned so many of the big players that even if we gave them like, hey, here's the contract, they might still say no, right? So,
and the deal to make them have to say yes, it would be so like ridiculously cost prohibitive.
Yeah, for them to trust. So I don't know if there's much of a I don't want to say there's no hope, because I mean that's ridiculous. I am not a doomer, but I would say I'm a realist, and I think the reality is life is going to be changing for a lot of people. And I guess, look at the guy prognosticating life's going to change, but
give him a medal.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I can look into the future, but there's a lot of huge challenges that are not being addressed. There's a big hole in the Canadian boat, and I don't really care who drives it. I've long ago got off on one of the little lifeboats, and I'm just loosely tied to the big Canada boat that has a hole in it, and I'll cut the string.
I saw, to your point, on a similar note, I saw an interview today from this Globe and Mail reporter who's been there for 10 years, but he wrote this book, something like Canada's Broken or something like that. And he basically was like, he went over like from like how like by every metric over the last 10 years, we are like prohibitively worse. Like even if you step outside and like look at the outside media, like Europe uses us as the example for the extreme in a lot of different things, whether that's like euthanasia or poverty or like open air drug markets. Like
we're the example.
We used to be the example of like
what to do,
and like a clear-headedness and like how to run an economy and how to be reasonable. And now we're the example of what not to do in every facet, whether it's economy, cultural, or social. It's just all been destroyed.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Well, what maybe we should. I mean, the great thing about us being the unification party is maybe we should start by unifying with Taiwan and then China. So that would be right up Mark Carney's alley. Yeah, and well, there already is a unification party for China to unify with Taiwan. So we could maybe join with them.
I don't want to join with them. I'm a proud supporter of Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists. I still stand by that Taiwan is a free sovereign nation and it is the only real China. So you're going to lose your second man if we shift the party in that direction.
Well, then that settles it. That settles it. We'll stay with unifying with, we've picked our horse. United States has a lot of trouble. China has a lot of trouble, but we've picked our horse, and that's that then. Okay.
So do we support Chiang Kai-shek? And like he's the one who fought against Mao and lost, and that's when they ran away. But anyways, yeah.
I don't support any of the Asian countries. I'm fiercely locked into a unification and economic and defensive juggernaut that could be North America, and whatever that entails. But we'll sort that out so next week, let's dive into this Agenda 2040, the Horizon Report.
Yeah.
Deep dive.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Later. Wow.